Welcome to New York City and Mission City Church. We're here to connect people with God and with each other. We hope you're encouraged by this week's message.
Thrilled to be with you this morning, and hello. I'm Garrett, and I'm going to get the chance to open the scriptures with you for a few minutes here together. Thank you for coming, as always, and if it's your very first time, always a special thank you to you. We say often when you come to a new church for the very first time, you have no idea what to expect. All you got to go on is hope, So thank you for your blind trust, to some degree, to come to church to a new church for the very first time. And we have new people here every week, so it is great to have you, especially on this Sunday. After this, we have got actually about a third of our church, I think, is out of this room right now, getting ready for the next thing. So we've got a little fall fest we're going to throw. We had to move it inside. It rained on us a little bit, so we had to move it inside, but across the street and up just a little bit. We're going to have a chance to get together and have some fun. There's going to be a bounce house for the kids, food for everybody. It's going to be a good time. So a part of our church is already there preparing for you at the next thing. So in any case, it's wonderful to have you today. I want to introduce a brand new collection of messages. This message, a lot is introing today, and it's all about prayer. And prayer involves two questions that I think you've got to have answered if you're going to pray. And here come the two questions. Number one, who are we praying as? And number two, who are we praying to? I think you got to have a pretty good grip on those. There was a form of communication when I was a kid. The ad commercials on TV, like the TV commercial wars, were. Do you remember the collect call companies like battling each other? 1-800-COLLECT and all these ads. I think 1-800-COLLECT had Mr. T, and there were all these other celebrities that they were signing on to do these collect call advertisements. And so now we got more like the big pharma battles, or this car company or that car company. Some of the same ad battles, but back then I remember in the 90s there was a big collect call commercial feud going on. And the whole idea of a collect call is you have to announce not just who you're calling, but you have to say who you are. You have to say, this is so-and-so, and you have to tell the operator who you're calling. Without those two pieces of communication or the information, the communication doesn't take place. You can't establish the connection. And so today, we don't have to do that anymore. We just pick up our phone and we just hit dial or whatever, and it just goes straight to the person, and we're free to self-forget. But if you make a collect call, you have got to say, this is who I am, and this is who I'm trying to get a hold of. And I think prayer works more like that. I think with prayer, it is important to know who we are and who we're praying to. Now, I think some people may doubt that this is a good way to think about it. Some people may say, why do we need to know who we're praying as? I mean, it should just be about God, right? Who we're praying to. It's all about God. Prayer is about God. So why would we even need to know who we're praying as? And here's what I would say. Life passes us by so fast and throws so many changes at us so fast, and so many events at us that actually shape us, that we can actually pray dishonest prayers sometimes. Sometimes we'll pray prayers as if we were the person we were 5 years ago, or as if we were the person 10 years ago, or if we were people who hadn't lived through a pandemic, Sometimes when you ask someone, how are you and how have you been? Anybody ever ask you that and you felt that blank feeling of I've been moving so fast for 24 months, I don't know. I don't know who or how I am at this point, Sometimes this happens in our prayer life when we get into the presence of God and we don't even know who we're at or where we've been. It's all right, here's God, it's me, but I've graduated since then, or it's me, but 2 kids later, or God, it's still me, but I've lived through all these events in my life, and it's me, but I've been through absolute social turmoil in the last few years, or what have you. And so there's a sense in which it's really important to understand who we are as we pray, because if not, we'll pray out of ignorance and denial of what's actually real and true. Imagine you call someone on the phone and they say, who is this? And you say, I don't know. It's helpful to know who we're praying as. But of course, we don't want to get lost in an echo chamber of ourselves, right? Praying is about much more than ourselves, right? So we don't want to get locked into our own thoughts in kind of an echo chamber. We've got to know who we're praying to. If we don't know who we're praying to, then we'll make prayer all about ourselves. You'd be like the person trying to call someone and, saying there's no right way, or I'm not really trying to reach anyone. And here's the thing. If you call trying to reach no one, you'll succeed every single time. You've got to have an idea of who you're reaching out to. Who is the God that you're actually praying to? These are both so important that we know who we are and who he is. Otherwise, I mean, what good does it do to invent a God and then pray to that God who's not real? I mean, what good does it do to invent something as a figment of our imagination and then to try to entrust our lives and our souls to that imagined thing? It can't do any good. It's imagined, right? It's not real. So it is absolutely critical, I'm convinced, that we've got to know who we're praying as. That helps. And also, who is this God that we're actually praying to? Is he there? And if he's there, what is he like? And I'm actually compelled by this quote this morning. This is a 500-year-old pastor, thinker, thought leader person. His name is John Calvin, very influential this whole half of the globe. And he said this, a very opening line of one of his big books. He said this: "Our wisdom, insofar as it ought to be deemed true and solid wisdom, consists almost entirely of two parts: the knowledge of God and of ourselves." There's those two parts, right? And I think if that's true of wisdom, I don't think it's too much of a leap to say that's true of prayer too. We need to have some amount of knowledge of God, and we need to have some amount of knowledge of ourselves. We are starting a brand new collection of messages today, and you guessed it is on prayer. We made that very clear. It is called Dear God, Reflections on Prayer. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was taught that the first two words of a prayer are Dear God. I don't know if that's true, but I'm passing it on to my daughter by default. I probably need to examine that one. So here we are, Dear God, okay? Dear God, Reflections on Prayer. And that's what this entire thing is about. I want to be just really honest with you. I am hopeful for the next few weeks. We don't even know how long this is going to be. 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 years. I don't know. We're going to do this a long time, all right? We're going to be in Dear God for a while. And it won't be 2 years. It'll be a while. And I am praying from a place of hope and need as it relates to prayer. I want more of a vibrant prayer between me and God. There is more to be had. There is more to enjoy. I've noticed too much routine in my prayers lately. I've noticed absence in my prayers lately. I've noticed bad attitudes in my prayers lately, which I guess points for honesty, but it's not really where you want to live, you know? And so there's so much about my own prayer life that is not where it's supposed to be, and there's so much more. And I hope that doesn't surprise you. Some of you know pastors are human beings, and this doesn't surprise you, but perhaps some of you are like, I thought that was supposed to be automatic. If you're a pastor, you're just supposed to be praying at all times and you're supposed to be the one who has it down. Well, you're looking for another pastor. I don't have it down, you know, so I just don't. I am hoping to let God do a new thing. I've had great seasons of prayer, and I've had seasons that are just, you know what, I'm hanging in there, and I'm looking for something new. And that's not just true personally. I have equally high hopes for our entire church, that a culture of our church will start to shift more towards prayer. Because when you pray, by the way, it's about God. It's not just about the activity of communicating. It is about enjoying the presence of God. It is about communing with the divine, with your Father, with the one who knows you, loves you, has saved you, is reaching out to you, wants to guide your life, right? So there's so much to gain here. And I think there's so much goodness and blessing still on the table for me personally. You may sense it in your own life, and for our church. I sent a survey to our team leaders about a month ago. And I said, hey, how would you rate your prayer life? You know, say 1 to 10. How would you rate your team, wherever you serve at Mission City Church? How would you rate the prayer life? And how would you rate just the overall church as a whole in terms of prayer life? And some people, said great. And some people said not so great, all over the map. But here was one thing I heard more than once that I think is true. That at Mission City, we've drifted a little too far into prayer as a routine or a transition instead of an active space where we're spending time with God. You know what I mean by prayer as a transition? It's where we only pray when we need to move people on and off the stage while your eyes are closed. You know what I'm saying? That's prayer as a transition. It's planned, it's perfunctory, and it doesn't mean we're not really praying. It just means if that's the only space prayer's taking up, it's a little routinized and a little stale. Wouldn't you agree? So we're looking for more. I'm just telling you, I'm looking for more. We are looking for more, and I'm hoping that you are looking for more as we just ask God to show us what is prayer, where does it come from, who are we as we do it, and who is He as we do it, most importantly, and how can a new thing begin to take place. Now, to do this, we're going to look at a few key moments of prayer throughout the Bible. There's a lot of them. Of course, you may think of the Lord's Prayer. That's somewhere out there in the coming weeks, way out there somewhere probably. There's the high priestly prayer of Jesus in John chapter 17. There's all kinds of prayers throughout the Scripture, famous ones in the Old Testament, big moments in time of warfare or need or what have you, and just big, big moments of prayer. We're going to take a look at many of those, but today we're going to look at the very first time prayer is taking place in the entire Bible. So we're going way, 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 way back, and it doesn't say much. In fact, it says one sentence. We've got one sentence about prayer. Now, how far back are we going? We're going to Genesis chapter 4. Okay, so if you know the first 3 chapters of the entire Bible, that would be that Genesis is the first book. And so the creation of the world is detailed in chapter 1 and 2. And then the world wanders off into trouble and separates itself from God in chapter 3 with chaos and disease and destruction and all the bad things, that enter into this life. If I was going to tell it to my 2-year-old, I would say Genesis 1 and 2 are when all the good things were created. And Genesis 3 is where all of them got mud on them to some degree or another. They were warped, they were hurt, they were broken, right? And so in Genesis 4, we enter into that broken creation, but we can't put a date on this. I don't know what date this is, I'll be honest with you. It is before, it's certainly before Jesus, it's before the prophets, it's before David in about 1000 BC, it's before Moses in about 1500 BC, it's before Abraham in about 2000 BC. This is before Noah, who wrote out the flood, and I would say, can't put a firm date on that. And this is before then. So we are, for all intents and purposes, looking at a prehistoric date here in terms of a number. So if you're mathematically precise, you're just going to have to roll with this one. I don't know how many people were on the earth at this time. I don't know what region they were in. We don't get a lot of detail. I just know we're looking at early humanity reaching out to God. So that's the setting here. And I want you, if you would, to have on your mind just first about these people. Who were they praying as? And who were they praying to? And just study them for a moment. And then for the second half of our time, who are we praying as in these days, in this culture? And who are we praying to, right? And so that's the way we'll take it this morning. So here it comes. This is Genesis chapter 4. Heads up, it is not going to feel like it's about prayer until the very end. But listen closely and see if you can learn a little bit about who are these people that are praying. And who are they praying to? Cain knew his wife. That would be the son of Adam and Eve. Yes, that Adam and that Eve. So we're, again, way back. Cain knew his wife. She conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city builders. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mehujael, and Mehujael fathered Methushael, and Methushael fathered Lamech. And Lamech took 2 wives. That was a new development because in Genesis chapter 1 it was not so. More on that in a moment. The name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other was Zillah. Adah bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. You're thinking, where's prayer? Where's prayer? His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe. Zillah also bore Tubal-Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, and where does this come from? Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, you wives of Lamech. Listen to what I say. I've killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge, remember Cain committed the very first murder, a fratricide, a murder of his brother. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. So this person really sketches himself out as a vengeful person. And Adam knew his wife again, so he's still on the earth. And she bore a son and called his name Seth, for she said, God has appointed me another offspring instead of Abel, for Cain killed him. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Where's prayer? Where's prayer? After all that setting, we get this sentence. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. This is the very first mention of prayer in the entire Bible. Prayer and worship. They're calling on the name of the Lord. This is the very first time. Now, why at that time? Let's see if we can pick up some clues. Like, who are these people? And let's just get into their lives for a second. We think about our lives all day, every day. Let's just think about their lives just for a second. We picked up some clues there. I know it was kind of name, but we picked up some clues there about who these human beings were and what they were like. So let's just take it as a study from an outsider before we do this for ourselves in a moment. What were they like? Well, first they were city building, right? It said when he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son. You are surrounded by city building. So you already have more in common than you think, okay? The city building that is around you is constant, okay? Downtown Brooklyn is going to reach the moon at some point, okay? It's just taller and taller and taller, with some people celebrating it, some people dreading it, right? So, but no matter what your perspective is on it, you're surrounded by city building. So you have this in common with these individuals. So already you've got people gathering together to pool their human resources and to try to build something, right? Cities are monuments to human ambition and have all downsides associated. So that's one fact of their life. Second, they were, we find out, polygamous. So someone has taken 2 wives. So this wasn't the design of God. Sometimes people ask, like, how come God was in favor of people having more than one wife in the Old Testament? And when I go back and look at this, I see Lamech took 2 wives. I don't see, and God liked it. You know what I mean? I don't see that anywhere. So there's never a time when God co-signed this. It was not his thing. God's thing is one man and one woman, crystal clear in Genesis chapter 1, and they leave from their families of origins to make a new family of origin, and that's honoring to God, and they co-labor together for the glory of God to create order on the earth and cultivate flourishing, right? Okay, so that was Genesis 1 and 2. Jesus himself, many years after this passage, would affirm that as well. So when we say here, what we're describing here, we're describing, we're not prescribing. You know what I'm saying? You need that tool. When you read the Bible, you can ask yourself, is this describing what happened without any moral comment, like just recording the history? Or is this prescribing what's supposed to happen, like giving you a command? Like, here, let's just quiz real quick. When the Bible says, thou shalt not commit adultery, descriptive or prescriptive? Prescriptive. Thou shalt not. It's very clear, okay? Now, what about this part? David committed adultery. Descriptive, right? It's telling you what happened, not signing off and saying this was a good thing, okay? So when we see polygamy here, this is description. This is not a prescription of what God wanted to have happen. In fact, what we find out here is immediately after the fall of the world, women immediately begin to lose. Immediately there's a man, it doesn't say that a woman took 2 husbands all of a sudden. It says a man took 2 wives, right? So in the rough and tumble ancient world, all of a sudden we see that the creation of God is being distorted. And so now we've got polygamous city builders. Are you getting a view here of like who these people are as they begin to pray? There's more. They are nomadic. It says they dwell in tents. So somehow, some part of the human race is gathering together in cities, and some people are spreading out in tents. And it also says that they're agricultural. It says they have livestock. So all of a sudden, did you know that in the beginning, Adam and Eve, there's really no evidence that Adam and Eve ate meat, So I happen to be a meat eater. My wife's 30th birthday was this weekend. We ate steak. I'm not sorry. So I like meat. But in the beginning, it seemed like it was not so. So people are cultivating agriculture for the first time and having livestock, not just plants, but livestock. Okay, so now are you seeing what's starting to come here? And then we see humanity in all of its diversity starting to emerge. It says at this time also, so-and-so was the father of those who play the lyre and pipe. Can you imagine being like the patriarch of music? Okay, like he was the father of those who play the lyre and the pipe. Like he is the originator of music, up on the earth, is what it's saying here. So they were musical. So they listened to music. They enjoyed music. It says here also that they were technological, meaning it says that they worked with metals, right? So they were forging instruments of bronze and iron. So all of a sudden they're technological as well. You are surrounded by a technological age. Just be aware of that. More on that in a second. You are surrounded by that. And then finally, sadly, murderous. This man, after taking 2 wives, says, if Cain, the infamous murderer who introduced killing onto the planet, if he's, 7 amounts of anger, I'm 77. Like I'm bad, like I'm trouble, and I'm like, I will kill anyone. And so we see violence is in these people's hearts as well to some degree. So that means they're city building, polygamous, nomadic, agricultural, musical, technological, and murderous all at the same time. Now, why does that lead to the next sentence? At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. The only thing I can see is because it's always a good time to call upon the name of the Lord. There's nothing about that specific set of attributes that necessarily automatically makes someone pray. It's just where they were, it's just how they were, and they just decided, you know what, some of them, probably not all of them, I'd wager, probably what's his name here with the 2 wives and the killing, he probably wasn't in on this, but somebody on the planet decided, we need God. Like we right now are a mix, and you can see this on the screen, we right now are a mix of good, bad, and evil. Like that's where we're at as a society. We're a mix of good and bad and evil. And when you're a mix of good, bad, and evil, it is a good, just sheer evil, it is a good time to call upon the name of the Lord. You can call upon God from any circumstance. You can call upon God. It doesn't matter if you're one of the ones we call ancient, or if you're you and someone down the line is going to call you ancient, okay, and assume you were wandering around in the dark, okay? But no matter where you're at in time, no matter where you're at in experience, you can always call upon the name of the Lord, and that's what these specific people did. They just said, this is the time, and prayer and worship began. That's who they were. Now, who were they praying to exactly? They were praying to the God that they knew created the universe and everyone in it. They were praying to the God who gave special and obvious dignity to human beings. Like special and obvious dignity. Everybody knew even then, this is the God who gave special and obvious dignity to human beings. There are efforts around us, and have been for over 150 years, to whisper to you and teach you that you are just an animal. You know, that there is no special and obvious dignity to you. And I would say that cannot be true because I have never seen a non-human being execute the higher faculties that we've been given. Yes, animal life has dignity, for sure. However, there is no such thing as any amount of animal intelligence that's ever produced a prayer seminar, okay? And I understand, you know, like say orangutans are smart, they say dolphins are smart. Like there's certain animals that I understand are smart. But there's no ability to genuinely blur the line between them and us, okay? You show me a bunch of dolphins talking about prayer together in rows, and I'll be like, okay, I might reconsider that, okay? But it just doesn't happen. For all their intelligence and for all of our sometimes, you know, dimness, we are still fundamentally different kinds of creatures. There's a special and obvious dignity, and people knew that. Then they prayed to the God who gave special breath of life to the humans. They were praying to the God they could sense on their conscience. Because even at this time, even though their conscience may have been conflicting at times, they all had a sense of right and wrong, and they knew that had to be the thumbprint of God. So they prayed to the God to whom they felt they owed life and consciousness. They were praying to the God who created their first 2 parents. They were praying to the God who would also continue to reveal himself, the one who would reveal himself through the flood and the reset of the world, the one who would found the nation of Israel by Abraham and his children, the one who would proliferate every nation on the earth through grace and food and sustaining the world, the one who would choose Moses and have all the people delivered out of Egypt, the one who would speak through the prophets, and the one who would lead the nation back out of exile, back to Israel in 400s BC, and the one who would send his own son, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, to walk among us. That's who they were praying to, and that's who they were praying as. But I think now, it would be good for us in this introductory kind of Sunday. If it feels introductory, it's supposed to. We're setting the table here. Let's consider for us now, who are we praying as? What does it mean in this moment? Like, let's pause the way we did just a moment ago and study ourselves. Who are we praying as in this moment, and who do we believe we're praying to? What does it mean to be a praying, breathing human being in 2023 in New York City? What does it mean? So I'm going to take an acronym here and a list of attributes that I just read. I'm going to lean heavily in this section on a pastor from London. His name is Andrew Wilson, and he's summed up a great deal of what he sees in Western culture through these words. Here they come. Number 1, westernized. So if you're praying in this particular part of the world, there's a good chance that you are westernized. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean you're Western, as in born in the Western hemisphere. You may have been born anywhere on the planet. But if you're here now, if you're sitting in these seats now, or if you're listening to this podcast from this continent or this set of influences, regardless of wherever you originated from, there is a certain amount of westernization that has happened to you. There's an overwhelming likelihood of that. And what that means is there is a sense a sense in which many countries are cooperating together in a broader set of interlocking relationships. You know, the concept of the United States is that there's 50 states who have some room for diversification in their laws, but there's one binding thing. Well, the modern West, and actually the West has always been this way, is a collection of states that function a little bit like provinces, even though they each have their own independence. There's a like-mindedness, you know? If you, for instance, if you just walked down the streets of, say, I don't know, I'll pick one, Germany, you would find out that they're protesting the things that we protest. They're hoping for the things we hope for. Their political spectrums look similar to our political spectrums. And there's just a sense in which you're in a broader set of relationships than you realize. So westernized, that's us. Second, and this one is most interesting to me as a pastor and very relevant for your prayer life. Broadly speaking, ex-Christian. Now, I'm speaking in very broad strokes here. I'm trying to get my arms around all of society. It's not easy to do. So if you're the individual that breaks the rule, I'm not surprised you exist. So, but generally speaking, we are in an ex-Christian culture. This is fascinating to me, and I hope it is to you, and has profound effects on your ability to pray. So let's dive into history just for a moment here. I saw this recently. This is an image of the cover of the New Testament, and I know there in the middle, it's hard to see, but that is published, a first edition, 1611, which means it's a first edition cover page of the New Testament of the King Jimmy Bible, okay, the King James Bible, all right? So this is the first edition King James, and he has created this set of artistry. And here's what's at the top of the page. Check this out. This is our model for how we were thinking about the world, okay, at least people who were reading the scriptures at this time. Again, 1611. At the top, do you see that Hebrew writing there at the top? That's the sacred name of God. That's what that is. And you see there's like light. I'm talking very top center here. There's like light coming off of that. There's an assumption here that God is light. Isn't it what the Bible says? That God is light and he's giving all revelation. Like he's the center of all truth. Amen? So now, and if you look down below, you see people writing in books. What are they doing? They're catching the inspiration of God and writing the trustworthy scriptures for you and for me. That's what they're doing. This is a Christian worldview. The idea that God, as a being, is light, he's the center of everything, and that he is inspired by his spirit and by his text. He's inspired people to trust him and is still speaking through his word to this day. That's the mental model of a Christian. Everybody clear? Now, let's go forward to the cover page of another book a little over 100 years later. That is, in English, the Encyclopedia, or renamed, AKA, a reasoned dictionary of science, arts, and professions by a society of lettered people. A little self-compliment in there. Lettered people. Smart people wrote this thing. That's what they put on the cover. I'm impressed already. So anyway, but now if you were to turn that page, here's what you would see. This is their cover image of this particular worldview. You're going to see a strongly ex-Christian move here. Not ex-anything, ex-Christian. So at the very, very top, you'll see, if we'll just zoom in here, I know these old paintings can be, less than inspiring to our modern, forms of art where we're used to video and things like this, but bear with me here. This figure in number 1, you see the light theme? So this is truth. Figure number 1, and this is, by the way, this is from the original people who assessed this, so I'm not making this up. The first person there is truth. That's what this figure is supposed to represent. Do you see that number 2 and number 3 are unveiling truth, like trying to get to truth? Do you see that? Number 2 and number 3 represent reason and philosophy. So what does that tell you? We shifted from the revelation of God, okay? We sit and wait, and God shines on us, to reason and philosophy, meaning we will uncover truth for ourselves. No, God, thank you. No, God, thank you very much. We will handle it, and human beings thinking about it hard enough can figure it out. Reason and philosophy can unveil the truth. It's good enough. We don't need God. Maybe the medievals needed God. Maybe the superstitious needed God, but we don't need God anymore because after all, we're smart. We're people of letters, okay? Like by reason and philosophy, we can get to the bottom of this. And if you think I'm making that up or just being, paranoid. I know sometimes people think pastors are paranoid and think everybody's coming for it. Just to be clear, figure number 4 should seal the point. Figure number 4 is theology. What is theology depicted as doing? And the reason I know that is because she's holding a book and it says Bible in French. Okay, it's not hard. This is theology, okay? And what is theology doing? Sitting on their knees, nobody else is paying attention to them, a forgotten pursuit, waiting on direct revelation and missing out on the whole chasing of truth. A superstition, just off to the corner there, trying to desperately hang on and believe God's going to speak. Do you see that? This is not like I'm not having to make up this snub. This was a snub, okay? And I just want to tell you this, I picked one little obscure part of history to show this. You could look at the last 400 years of university movements and our public dialogue. We are distinctly ex-Christian. We have moved away, okay, from the systematic assumption of Christianity in the society, period. We are ex-Christian. But what's interesting to me is we're ex-Christian, not ex-something else. So our Christianity shows up all the time. We care dramatically about equality, and Jesus affirmed the radical dignity of all human beings. So Christianity has given us so many of our assumptions that we don't even know where they came from anymore, For instance, here is ex-Christian life in America. Someone summed it up by saying this sarcastically. The ex-Christian worldview is we all evolved from monkeys, but let's love each other, right? So the loving each other comes distinctly from Christianity, but it doesn't naturally follow a firm, materialistic, atheistic worldview. There's no reason molecules have to honor each other. You know what I mean? That doesn't naturally follow, you see? So we are a fusion of ex-Christian forces. We're ex-Christian because you know what we do when a tragedy happens? We say our thoughts and prayers are with them, okay? So there's the Christian part. We're saying prayers. But we can't say more than that because we have to keep it super vague so nobody's offended. So we're constricted by absolute vagueness. Our thought, you ever heard that? Something serious will happen in the media and the most the anchor can safely muster is our thoughts and prayers will be with them. That's as religious as we get, only in tragedy, and we only say the word prayer. We don't say who or to or through, we just say thoughts and prayer. You see, so we're defined by Christian impulses, but also confined by our ex-Christian impulses. We are moving away as a society from God. That has, you're not in, I know, the word deconstruction has been used a lot in the last 2 years. It's a fine word, but people have been using that a lot. And I'm just telling you, you are in the middle. You are living in a 400-year deconstruction project as a society. That influences you whether you like it or not. I hope you were engaged by all that. I certainly can't get enough history. So anyway, let's move forward. So we are Westernized, we're ex-Christian, and that's really big. Third, we're industrialized. You got machines around you. You probably got machines who took you here, okay? And you're like, no, I took the bike. That's a machine, okay? Somebody had to come up with that, okay? Machines are everywhere. Machines make sure that when you live, think about how advanced you are. You really are. You may feel like you don't have much. Listen, if you live on the 10th floor, water, when you take a shower, and you may have a terrible landlord, you may have a bad building, whatever, but still, you're on the 10th floor and water defies gravity so it can come up through your shower and fall on you, okay? That is industrialized. You have a mass amount of technology. Or when you go to the bathroom, that means your stuff just magically disappears and it goes down 10 stories to you don't know where and you don't care because you go on about your life, okay? You are intensely industrialized. There is so much machine. Now, we're still trying to get our arms around the newest iteration of all this, which is AI. So now everybody's wondering about AI. So we have followed. You're in the middle of a long, hundreds of years long industrialization project. You like machines, okay? And if you don't think you do, just wait till one of them breaks. You are machine dependent. We all are. So that's who we are. We're machine dependent. And then this word, as a society. Again, I'm not painting in broad strokes individually here, but as a society, rich. I'm not saying legitimately rich. I'm not saying appropriately rich. I'm not saying every individual is rich. I'm saying if you compare society to society, the Western Hemisphere is one of the wealthiest societies to ever live. Even if you have been, here's what's funny is we feel like we're not wealthy because we just can't quite seem to save up for that vacation we want. You're saving for a vacation. You know what I'm saying? Zoom out on a world view, on a whole world level. The fact that you even have an idea of a thing called vacation separates you from 90-something% of world history. You know what I mean? So we are, no matter what, I know as we compare person to person, we're like, no, once we look at us, at our block or our city, we see dramatic disparity and dramatic wealth gaps, and those are real and those exist and those are important to acknowledge. But I'm talking about if you zoom out far enough and you compare modern West to entire rest of world history, you get a pretty wealthy thing That influences us. You know why? Because there's a proverb that says, give me neither too much nor too little, lest I may have too much and say, who is the Lord? When you get rich, you stop needing God. When you feel like you can make your own way through, you stop praying. That's a thing that just happens. Continuing, we are a democratic people. This is more about you. You are a democratic person. If you're in these seats in New York City, you're a democratic person. You know what? One thing that didn't happen in New York City? They never named a street after a king or a queen. First Street, Second Street, Third. That's making a point, people. Think about the context this came out of. All right, it's not Queen married this and that and other. We're not doing Queens. First Street, Second Street. Oh, but hold on, the avenues. First Avenue, Second Avenue. You know, it is extremely democratic. Okay, this was one of my favorite moments in pop culture from the last year. Someone told a basketball coach, NBA coach, the royal family is going to come to the game. You know, do you guys remember this moment? The royal family is going to, and he's referring to, the British monarchy. So, somebody's coming. And the coach looks back at the camera and says, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, that's the only royal family I know. Like, absolute refusal. The revolution was 200 plus years ago, and this dude just won't have it. Like, he's like, nobody is royal to me because we're democratic. We are intensely democratic. You assume you should get a vote. That's how you know you're democratic. You assume you should get a vote. You have any idea? Most of the world never even thought they would ever get half a vote, okay? You assume you should get a vote. That's because you're democratic. And then we're educated. We're educated people. Now, when I say this, I mean we're carrying education as a value. Similar to the wealth thing, there are significant education gaps. I'm not saying everybody in this country or in this hemisphere has an equal education. I'm not saying that. I understand there's opportunity issues. There's a significant amount of complexity here. But I'm saying you care about education, and you'd be shocked at anyone and offended, mortally offended, if anyone ever told you that there should be a systematic neglect of a people group that just shouldn't be educated. If anybody told you that, like, oh, well, kids from that area shouldn't be educated, or girls shouldn't be educated, that's a popular one from history, or whoever shouldn't be educated. If anybody ever told you that, you would look at them like they're from another planet. And what's funny is they are from another planet. They're from a non-westernized area that doesn't believe that this is still all over the planet, people. People still to this day believe there are entire swaths of humanity that should just be denied education just because of who they are, and that drives you crazy, okay? And it should. So that's one of the traits that we carry. Who are we praying as? You need to know that. And then finally, romantic. And by that does definitely not mean what you think it means. By romantic, what I mean is we really give a lot of space to feelings and ideas. In fact, we have given so much authority to our ideas and feelings that we've given our ideas and feelings at a personal and societal level authority over the physical world. Like we've just said, there is so much, this is the you do you, this is the no one can stop you, this is the no one can judge you, we're choosing to release every individual to whatever ideas exist in their head. That's what I mean by romantic. This is who we're praying as. Why do we spend all this time setting this up? It influences how you pray. It is going to influence you as you pray. Your posture before God is some swirl of these influences. And by the way, in case you were wondering, that's weirder than any society who has ever existed, okay? These are not normal. These are not normal things. I didn't come up with the acronym, but I do think it's brilliant. I sponsor this, okay? So this is a strange set of, you read in Genesis 4 and you're like, this is so weird. No, you're weird. Like this environment, there's never been an ex-Christian environment like this systemically on the planet. It's never existed before. We are in new territory. You're praying in new territory as God executes his sovereign will upon the earth. You need to know where you're at and who you are as you sit in these seats and you attempt to reach out to God. Now, who are we praying to? And you guessed it. It is the very same God. There has been no change in God. We change and he doesn't. He's revealed more of himself in the person of Jesus Christ. He's revealed himself at the cross and resurrection of our redemption. He's revealed himself through the scriptures in whole, including the New Testament. He has revealed himself as the God of creation again and again. He has given us enough proofs to know him really and truly, and he is still the same God. Nothing about him changed. I was at a point in my life as a late teenager when I started to give God some influence over my life. And my mom passed away shortly thereafter, like which seemed out of order to me. Like I've given my life more to God, and then my mom passes away of cancer. But I realized one of the many things I realized in that really formative season was God is the same God. He was the same God before my mom passed away. He's the same God after my mom passed away. He's the same God from before I was born. And he's the same God after my last great-great-great-grandchild passes away. He is the same. He's unchanging. And that means something really important. It means it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's interesting to know, okay? It's interesting to know, where are we coming from here? Like what kind of space are we in? That's interesting. But at the end of the day, you can pray to God from any space and know that he's stable. You can get to God from any diverse human experience on the planet. You can get to God from the joy of a marriage starting, like a wedding day. You can get to the same God from the ruins of a divorce, like the day you sign the paper. You can get to God from the joy of a childbirth or the bitterness of a miscarriage. You can get to God from the high point of a promotion or the low point of getting fired. You can get to God when you get a raise, and you can still get to the same God when your money is tight or non-existent. You can get to God, listen to this, you can get to God as you repent from harming other people. And you can get to God if you've been harmed by other people. You can get to God from anywhere. It helps to know where you're coming from so that you don't deny, and so that you don't check out of reality, and so that you don't utterly fail to know where you're coming from and be false to yourself before the Lord, who knows you better already. But at the end of the day, wherever you are, whether you can name it or not, whether you can describe it or not, whatever the season is, you can get to God right now, and he is utterly fixed. And that brings stability to this experimental world, okay? You can get to God from a place of total security in your circumstances, or you can get to God from a place of uncertainty. You can get to God from Israel, and you can get to God from Gaza. Isn't that wild? The same God. You can get to him from any experience on the planet Earth, because he is open. He wants to commune with us, to relate to us, and we can know that he is there. What I'd love to do now is I would love to just pray. I'd love to spend time and just to do that. All right, so here's what we'll do. We'll just pray in two sections, okay? And this is silent between you and God. You don't have to come up here. You don't have to move around. We're not opposed to that on occasion, but that's just not what we're going to do at this particular time. We're just going to sit in your seat. You can be totally silent. And if you would, just speak to God and finish this sentence in the privacy of your own heart and your own mind. We're going to give you plenty of time to do this. Pray this, or something like it. God, I am praying from a place of, and then you just say the most honest thing you can say. That's all you got to do. You just go before God. This is an unrushed moment. Every other moment's rushed. Part of the problem with our prayer life is everything's rushed, okay? Nothing rushed, okay? If you can hear the person next to you breathing, move seats, okay? If you can hear your watch ticking, we'll turn the volume on the band up, okay? Unrushed, undistracted, just be. And if you'll just go before God and say, God, I am praying from a place of blank. And you just say the most honest thing. You can say, I am praying from a place of anxiety because we're going into a 12-month election cycle that is about to be a rematch of what plunged us into institutional distrust a few years ago. Okay, I'm not saying I'm going to pray that. I'm going to pray that. I feel uncertain. Okay, so listen, you just say the most honest thing you can say. It doesn't matter. I am coming to you from a place of a breakup. I am coming to you from a place of feeling discarded. God, I am coming to you from a place of joy and enlarged territory. God, I'm coming to you from a place of doubt. I don't know if you can hear me. That's my starting point. God, I'm coming to you from wherever you are. And you can just begin there as a place of having what you're trying to do is just open an honest channel. Just trying to open an honest channel between you and God. And what's going to happen is you're going to be in the presence of someone who already knows you, who has the knowledge of you before you had the knowledge of you, and who already has guaranteed you an embrace. But there's some power in just acknowledging, okay? You can say, God, I am coming to you from a place of feeling like I haven't slept well in 3 years, okay? God, I'm coming to you from anywhere. And so if we'll just do that together for a few minutes and just let let ourselves be in his presence and be comfortable in it. And know that there is no place that we could come from to where we're not allowed in.
Thanks for being with us. If these messages are strengthening you in your faith, we want to hear from you. Find us online at missioncity.nyc or email us at info@missioncity.nyc so we can celebrate everything God's doing in your life. We'll see you next week.